And I wanted to have him on to talk a bit about UFC 267, perhaps a little 268 talk, but about his own career as well. And so without further ado, it has been a while since I got a chance to talk to the outlaw, Dan Hardy. Let us say hello to the one and only Dan Hardy, who's kind of joined us from the familiar spot. I love it. This is great. Dan, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. Long time no speak, my friend, and really nice to see you. And you're doing fantastic work. Really, really great stuff. The breakdowns for BT obviously are incredible. The stuff on your YouTube channel, incredible as well. So just wanted to say off the bat, kudos, and great to see you still forging on and doing it your way.
Well, that's what we do, right? We love MMA, and we we dedicate our lives to it some way, however we can. And yeah, I love doing the breakdowns. I appreciate all the people that tune in and watch them and support the shows because it's not everyone wants to listen to one person talk for 45 minutes about a fight. I'm amazed that there's such a big audience for it. So I'm thankful for them.
Yeah, there's an audience, there's an anticipation. People really look forward to it. And obviously BT, they do a great job with those as well. Can I ask you, Dan, obviously, well documented, your departure from the UFC, and we don't need to get into all of that. You've talked about it ad nauseum, but to do your own thing sort of on the side and not be a part of the shows and whatnot. Do you have FOMO when there's an event in Abu Dhabi, which you may have been called upon to do? Like, how do you feel? Because look, take it from me. I know what that is like, right? You were in the machine, you're out of the machine. You were more in the machine than I was because you were actually on the broadcast. But can you describe the emotions when you watch these events? You're still very, visible. You're still a part of it. The fans love your stuff. But the actual event itself, what is it like for you to watch them?
Yeah, I mean, it's very bittersweet. Of course, I love the UFC. I always will. I love MMA, and I follow the sport just across the board. But yeah, I mean, there is a bit of a sour taste in my mouth when I'm watching the UFC events now because it's just like the way that it all kind of played out was unnecessary. It seemed very vindictive. So I just kind of sit on the outside now and watch and just. I mean, to be honest. I wouldn't have liked to have been in Fight Island. I started to feel quite anxious in the couple of weeks leading up to it, like I was going out there because it was a very stressful environment. The 3-4 times I was out there, the first one was fine because we had loads of space, but it got more restrictive and more oppressive, and it was a very stressful place. So I was thankful to not be there, but to not be at UFC events is I would have liked to have been in New York for this weekend. That would have been a good one, but. I'm Bellator this weekend instead. Things change. We walk down different paths and lots of things have opened up to me. So I'm thankful for that.
Wait a second, Dan. Is that breaking news? You're doing the Bellator. Have you done? What do you mean you're Bellator this weekend? They're in Dublin, right?
Yeah. No, I'm flying over to watch the event. I've not been to watch a Bellator event as a fan before. If ever I've been there, it's always been in somebody's corner or something. So it's. I've just fancied going over. I know it's going to be an amazing event. Obviously, there's some really great fights on the card. Queally and Gallagher are going to take the roof off the arena. And, I've had a couple of really good nights in that arena as well. That's where McGregor knocked out Brandao.
Yep.
And, what an iconic event that was. That was a pleasure to be a part of. So it'd be good to be a fan at an event again.
Wait a second, Dan. You're just going as a spectator? I don't buy this for one second. They're going to have one of the best minds in MMA just sitting in the stands and have some other jabron up on the desk over there talking fights. I don't buy this for a second.
Well, I might have a couple of conversations with them, but honestly, I've got so many doors open at the moment. I'm not committing to any direction, but there's lots of good things happening in mixed martial arts. I mean, you're across everything, so you know what's going on behind the scenes as well as out in the public eye. Lots of exciting things going on. But I was also at my cardiologist this morning because I've been in conversation with one about getting matched and they wanted a fresh set of cardiology results. So I've got, clearance to fight there as well. And there's boxing matches being offered. And I don't know what 2022 holds, but I'm excited for it. And, I will be a part of Bellator, perhaps somehow in the future, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, so let me ask you about the fighting because I've obviously heard you talk about it and I know about the reason why you had to walk away somewhat prematurely because of the heart. Why do you even want to do this? 2012 was your last fight, 10 years. You've got a great path for you here. You're doing the breakdowns. You're very well respected. I know there's a thrill that, fighting brings to you and is unmatched. Being behind a desk or a microphone, it's not the same. But why go through this all over again? You're out. You survived. You're doing well. Why the need for this?
Because because I'm a martial artist, and I'm still, my brain's still going 100 miles an hour every day. I'm still thinking and learning and trying new things. And I'm 40 next year, but I'm not old by any means. I've never had a surgery. I've never broken a major bone. I've only been knocked out once. That was one good clean shot from Condit. Aside from that, I'm in really good health. And if I've got opportunities to go and test myself, and this is the thing, I'm not in this to try and prove anything to anybody. This is a forum for me to test myself. I've got opportunities like fighting John Wayne Parr, or Nicky Holskin, or Tyron Woodley, or whoever. These are legitimate martial artists and good fighters, people that I would be able to test my skills against. And in a few years' time, I'll probably be too old to be doing it. We've seen that with some of the older guys that are stepping back in there. Time does pass you by. And I don't feel right now that it has. I've probably got another couple of years before, I start to really think about hanging it up. But why not? With some of the offer, and I'm free of the UFC. I've been released from my fight contract as well as everything else. So I have options now, and I can consider them.
But isn't there something to be said, as someone who knows fighting so well, 10 years is a long time to be away. I mean, 10 years from anything, right? Basketball, baseball, from anything. It's hard to, and you have a standard, I think. You say you've only been knocked out once. That was UFC 120, Carlos Condit, but you went, GSP couldn't finish you. We remember all the great moments. 10 years is a long time. There's no part of you that feels like, you know what? 10 years, that's a long time to be away. I may not come back as the outlaw that people once knew and loved, and I don't want to ruin that.
Well, that's kind of the point. There's not loads to ruin. It's not like I was a multiple time world champion. I had a good run. I felt like it was cut short, and my martial arts journey is still continuing. And this is why I'm not planning on getting in the mix and fighting for championships or anything like that. The reality is, if they offered me a title shot in one of the top divisions, I'd probably take it. But that's just me being me. I'm realistic about the people that I want to fight. John Wayne Parr is older than me. Nicky Holskin's the same age as me. Tyron Woodley's the same age as me. There are a lot of options of people that are good challengers. The one I always really wanted was Nick Diaz. And I mentioned that to the UFC several times, that, that was a fight I wanted. Matt Brown, I'm not being unrealistic. I'm not trying to step back in at the top 10 and think right. I'm comparable to these, like 30-year-olds, 28-year-olds, because of course I'm not. I've been watching the sport very closely, and I know where I'm competitive and where I'm not. So what I would like is to be able to step in there against, highly respectable, well-trained, well-established martial artists that are going to be able to push me not only in a fight, but also through a training camp. Because, like I said, I'm 40 next year. So why not give it one last little go and just kind of have some fun with it? I'm trying to prove nothing other than what I've grown in myself as a martial artist.
And so those of us who have been watching you and watching the sport for a long time remember around 10 years ago when you had to walk away. It was the heart issue. What was the official name of the issue that you had?
It's called Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, but I don't have that because I've never been symptomatic. I have Wolff-Parkinson-White pattern, but now I've been 3 times to the cardiologist now, and every single time it's not showing up since that first time before the Matt Brown fight. So I have a clean bill of health. I actually don't have anything. It's for whatever reason showed up on an exam that I had back in Vegas in 2013 and has not shown itself since. So that's it. It took me down a different path in my career, and I'm thankful for that because I have grown a lot. But I have also, I missed the opportunity to have a few fights that I think would have grown me as a person and a martial artist.
Wow, that's fascinating. Because I was just about to ask, like, do you have regret? Do you think back, if I could have fought another 5 years, I could have kept going? Who knows? You could have gotten another title shot, et cetera, et cetera. Do you find yourself dreaming about that and, kind of like Sliding Doors, right? That famous film where it's like, oh, you go down this path or that path. Unfortunately, you had to go down this path, which you then capitalized on and were able to adapt. But do you think a lot about what if that didn't show up in that exam around 9 or so years ago?
Yeah, yes, I do, of course. But I don't regret it. The thing is, I grew so much in the following few years. Like my mind grew, and my goal when I first got into this, when I was like, maybe not when I was 6 years old. It was more about being a Ninja Turtle. But as I got into like my mid-teens, I started to realize that my goal was to try and be as good as I could be, as good a martial artist as I could be. And I mean, I was that all the way through my career. I just think that there was more to it. And I grew a lot by sitting on the side and watching, by taking myself out of the equation. I can watch, I realized I was watching Robbie Lawler and Rory McDonald, and I wasn't putting myself in the fight. And I think that was the first time I'd ever done that. And being removed from the sport and being forced to kind of step to one side put me in a different place mentally. I watched that fight and I thought to myself, well, I'm now no longer involving myself in this. I'm no longer watching this through the lens of my fighter ego. I can watch these guys like realistically and clearly and see a lot more. So I've actually learned a lot more than I thought I would. I mean, I've said it to my fighters in the gym. I'd say it to any young fighter. If there comes a point in your career where you have to, sit aside for 6 to 12 months and recover, physically, or, like maybe a concussion or something, be obsessive about the sport as a fan, because you can gain so much from watching and learning. And I feel like I've grown a lot because of that, but I never got the opportunities to step back in there and try it out. I mean, I watch my old fights now. I watched my last fight against Amir, and it was a fun fight and I enjoyed it, but I cringe at my performance because it's a fraction of what I feel like I'm capable of. So I don't really feel like I showed what I'm truly able to do as a martial artist. And I'd quite like to try one more time.
Okay, and so is it just for one time?
Well, I'll see. I'm thinking it's going to be more limited by time. I might give it another 12 or 18 months and see what I can do in that time. But as of right now, I've got 5 good options. One kickboxing, one Muay Thai with small gloves, one Muay Thai with big gloves, one boxing match with big gloves, and maybe a fight with no gloves. So they're all good options. All fights, all opponents, every single one of them, the names you would know. So I'm going in there to see where my level's at and see what I've gained in these last 10 years sitting on the sidelines.
What's interesting about those 5 options is there's no MMA in those 5 that you just mentioned. So are we done with MMA?
Okay. Then there's a 6th option.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
For MMA.
Okay.
That's dependent on 2 of the others. So we'll see. Like the other thing as well is there's different rule sets. I love what One Championship are doing with the small gloves Muay Thai. I like the fact they've got kickboxing alongside it and guys are bouncing from one to the next. I like these kind of feature bouts that are coming up. Not all of them necessarily. I didn't need to see Evander Holyfield, but
right.
I don't mind, the Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley fights. And I'm interested to watch them because I'm watching 2 people, in a high pressure situation have to overcome one another with combat. I mean, that's always interesting to me. So I like the variety that we've got now. When I stepped out the sport, there was a lot less going on outside, and now a lot more is going on. And I'm enjoying, I'm enjoying being across it a lot more.
Is there one atop the leaderboard as of right this moment? Is there a favorite?
Yeah, Tyron Woodley in boxing. I'm speaking to the promoter later today, and I'm hoping that he's been in touch and he's signed the contract, because I know he's got a contract and I know he's agreed terms. I know he's agreed the date and the money and the rounds and everything. All he needs to do is sign it, and then we can get started. All my medicals are done now, so he literally has no excuse.
So a boxing match against Tyron Woodley. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, this wouldn't be a part of the whole Jake Paul. This is a separate thing happening in the UK, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I think the date's in March, but I don't know. I don't have a great deal more details to give you. I'll let them announce the event when it's time.
Who's the promoter?
And as soon as that ink is dry, then they'll be able to.
Who's the promoter?
I'm not giving any. I'm not giving any information right now. I'm waiting for Tyron to sign that contract, and then I'll let the promoter do what their job is.
How confident are you that this actually comes to fruition?
I'm confident that I'll fight. I'm not confident that Tyron Woodley would sign a contract to fight me, though. Which
Why?
Is exactly my point, really. I mean, my point was not to get a fight out of him. He's always been a bit sensitive. I criticized him once in the past when he was defending his UFC title, and I wouldn't want to be a champion that has the last 15 minutes of my fights booed because I'm, rubbing my back foot up against the fence. Like, It just bores me. And as a fan, I want to love the sport. And he made me annoyed at times when he was fighting because I didn't feel like he wanted to be in there. And then he did that same thing against Jake Paul. And he's always been sensitive to what I've said about him for whatever reason. So the obvious thing is, if I want to prove that he's not a fighter, I'll have to fight him. And everything's been agreed now. All he needs to do is just do it.
And are they talking to his side as well? This isn't just something where you're like, hey, I want to fight you. Like there's actual real conversations happening.
Yeah, he has a contract.
Okay.
He has a contract. He's read it. He's agreed. He said he'll do the fight. He just needs to sign the actual paperwork.
Just curious, why boxing and not, say, MMA, which is what you two are both most known for?
Because that's what was offered, to be honest.
Okay.
That's what was offered. I mean, I'm not really bothered the skill set. I like the idea of fighting within a restricted skill set, whatever that is, but I don't really care. I mean, every single one of the opponents that I've been offered, I would fight them under any rules that they want. It's more about the challenge of beating the person than anything. So I mean, we can do what DJ and Rodtang are doing if he wants, and we'll alternate. We'll even drop a round of chess in there so he can have a breather.
So if the understanding is UK, but like if you went to Nevada, if you went to California, if you went to New Jersey, New York, you would have no problem getting licensed at this point, is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're all good.
The clearance that I needed was for one championship, so I'm sending that over to them later today. As I said, I did the exams at 9 o'clock this morning, so. Everything's kind of fresh and still on its way in emails. But yeah, I'm cleared. I'm 100% cleared to fight under any rule set.
Wow, that is incredible. When you see Glover Teixeira at 42 win a UFC title, what does that do to you? How does that make you feel as someone who's about to turn 40, as you said?
It's amazing to watch. It's amazing to watch. I'm so proud of it. I mean, I'm disappointed for Jan as well. It's one of those kind of fights you didn't really want to see the guy lose. I just love them both so much. But I mean, incredible. Incredible. And to stay dedicated and to stay present in the sport that whole time. It always astounds me. Guys like Alistair Overeem and stuff that are still going. It's incredible. I don't know where they find the motivation, because I think if I'd not had a gap in between, I would be sick of it by now and want to take some time off. But I think it's the gap that's what's kept me motivated, to be honest. But those guys that have done it for the last 20 years and have always been competitive is incredible. And then to win the belt later on in their career is, I mean, what a silver lining for them.
By the way, since you left, did you have a moment where you stopped watching, where it was maybe too painful for you, where you needed a break mentally in the early days of, your separation from the UFC? Did you need to take a mental break from MMA?
I mean, I probably should have done, but I didn't, because we have other stuff going on. We have I'm committed to doing these war rooms now and on the channel, and I have a whole team of guys that love doing those shows, and that's their job. So we just kept rolling. We kept rolling. It was difficult. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I love the UFC, and I always imagined that I would be a part of and a supporter of the UFC, and I still am. I don't agree with everything that they do, and I think that we all share those opinions. The difference is now I'm not on the inside trying to make a difference, and no one's listening. I'm on the outside, and I can say what I like. And if you don't want to listen, you can just switch me off. I mean, that's the downside to being a commentator, is you find all the people that don't like you because they can't turn you off unless they put everybody on mute. So I can now, if you don't like me, you don't have to listen to me anymore. And if you do like me, then you know where to find me. So it's a bit more of a selective audience now. And I think it works better for me because I do have a few opinions that people don't seem to like.
I will say that I think you are missed on the broadcast before, during, after, and whatever happened. And, I don't want, because people ask me about the things that happened to me a gazillion times and I don't want to repeat it. So I don't want to go down that road. But I will say I am bummed that I thought your team, Raptors MMA, did a great job of covering the events. And I'm bummed that they are no longer allowed to cover the events and be credentialed. I don't think that's fair. And your issues, whatever happened, should have nothing to do with them because they always seem to be very professional. And so I just wanted to say that publicly because I feel for them and I know how much it meant to them to be at the events, and always great people. Sometimes when you have newer media members show up to the event, They sort of rub people the wrong way. Your guys always were very kind to everyone, always very respectful, and I think it's just unfortunate that they can't be at the event. So I hope that gets rectified. I don't know if it will, but one should have nothing to do with the other, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that was probably, to be honest, the most disappointing thing that came out of it, because I mean, they were just a couple of lads that came into the gym that had a set of skills and they love MMA and they wanted to be a part of it. And when I was able to plug them into the media days at the UFC, they were just absolutely losing their mind. And they were just starting to come into their own around the McGregor-Poirier fight, because I mean, you remember that clip that kept being used over and over again. That was James Mystery standing up there repeating Conor McGregor's quote to him from a few years ago and getting him to tear up on stage. The UFC used that. Everybody used that. That went around the internet again, and people don't quite realize that he's missed from those media days. Both of the Raptors are, and that was part of the thing that was unnecessarily vindictive. Like the way that the way that we don't need to get into it, but it was. You're either a part of the family or you are way on the outside, and they'll do everything they can to affect you, and that's really unnecessary. Because I'm just a fan of the sport, you know what I mean? And I was just fortunate enough to have stepped into the UFC a few times. It was unnecessary the way it played out. I don't think it will be resolved, but I hope it's resolved for the Raptors for sure. I'm happy to never go back to a UFC event again. But the Raptors, I would love for them to be present at the events again, because I know how much it meant to them.
Have you tried to reach out to Dana to clear it up, or to someone in PR to clear it? Have you tried to get on the phone or text or whatever?
I've tried a few different avenues just to really find out what had happened and what was said, because what went down was not necessary for them to fire me for that, if that makes sense. I mean, it was with a colleague that I'd been working with for 10 years or so. I mean, the person had known me through being a fighter as well as being a part of the UFC team. And I don't know what was said, but it was massively blown out of proportion. And I never got a conversation with anybody meaningful in the company. Anytime I would reach out under any channel, it was just those doors were closed. I mean, the UFC changed a few years ago. It's very much more a corporation now on the inside. But yeah, it was. I mean, that's the thing, I've not heard from Dana at all. Like in Dana's mind, he still thinks I was waiting at the door when Herb came out at the stop the fight situation. Like I'm sure that's still his perspective. And the people around him don't dare correct him. They don't dare tell him he's got something wrong. Like that whole situation that happened there, which, to be honest, I think is much more of the reason why I was released anyway. Like. That whole situation is misunderstood. Like people and
do you want to clear it? Do you want to clear it up?
Well, yes. I mean, sure. I mean, of course. I mean, everyone knows what happened. That I was in the wrong to shout at the referee on the broadcast. I'm well aware of that. That was my error, and I'll own that error. But I'll stand by it, because sometimes there needs to be someone that will do that. Like if that was a silent arena on Saturday, you would have heard DC and Felder doing the same thing. Halfway through the second round of a fight that went the distance, and we had nobody in there to protect that fighter. Like my concern is that the reaction to that was I was the one that was in the wrong, and I was the one that was shunned, even though the referee was not at all self-reflective with 2 late stoppages on the same card. I think the more familiar faces they get a level of respect that is due to them, of course. But we have to make sure that these people are protecting the fighters, right? In that circumstance, I saw a fighter that was clearly unconscious on the floor. He was in the fencing position, which, I mean, I don't know whether you saw the video I put out afterwards. I explained the fencing response. That is a surefire way of determining that someone's got a concussion. And a referee not to know that is a concern. I've spoke to several referees and not one of them knows what the fencing response is. So maybe that's an issue with their training. I know that there are referees that do training, but there's more that can be added to that. We can't act like we're perfect. We're still a very young sport. Anyway, I've digressed. In that moment, yeah, I shouted out that the fight needed to be stopped because I could see where I was that Jai Herbert was unconscious. I could also see that Trinaldo had recognized he was unconscious, which is why he stopped and didn't hit him anymore. The difference was that was a silent arena. So when I shouted, stop the fight, he knew exactly who it was. That's why if you watch on the broadcast, he looks over at me and he tells me to be quiet. Anyway, as soon as the fight was over, I am now in my spot at the broadcast. I've finished commentating the fight. I'm taking my headset off so I can turn around and face the camera to interview Trinaldo, because this was the social distancing interviews and stuff. So I'm still behind my desk. As I'm standing up, I noticed that Herb Dean's walking out the cage and coming over to me. And Herb doesn't move particularly quick, and he was moving quick. He was walking at my desk with a pace. So I'm not going to turn my back on him, of course. So I take my headset off and I mute it so you can't hear what's going on the broadcast, right? And he said, and we had a back and forth conversation, you know. I don't remember exactly what was said, but it was, you know, did you shout something at me? I said, yes, I did. That's the second time that there was, you know, 2 times, blah, blah, blah. You know, and he said, you let me do my job and you do yours. And I said, you need to do your job. I can't remember exactly what I said, but you remember the exchange. Anyway, he walked away. I turned around, put my headset on and did the interview with Trinaldo. But then the whole story got turned around somehow. Even when I got backstage, the producer came at me out of the truck and was yelling at me because I'd gone over to confront him. I never did. I stayed at my desk. And when I spoke to the UFC about it afterwards, their advice to me was, in that moment, you should have turned your back. And as a martial artist, I could never do that. I can see this guy coming at me with a pace. I'm going to stand and be ready. Like, he was leaning over my desk. So maybe in hindsight, if I'd have complained about that, I might have found myself in a more protected position. But my main focus is the fighters getting protection. And he's still present at regular events and still making mistakes consistently. He still waves the fight off at the end of the round. He still doesn't exactly know what he's doing. It concerns me. It really does, because at some point our sport is going to be negatively affected by someone not doing their job. And we're all going to be impacted by that. And we're all going to be saddened by it. And this weekend was a good example of that. We were close to it. Brian Ortega, same situation, you know? None of these people are going to be there in 15 or 20 years when these guys can't remember their kids' names. Like, that's the thing that we have to not forget. We love MMA. I love MMA. Nobody loves a knockout as much as me. Trust me. I watch him on repeat over and over again. Look how he did this. Look at the feint. I love it. But what I don't want to see is these guys taking unnecessary damage, because the sport's damaging enough. And we need referees that do good jobs. And there are a small handful of them out there. And we need to protect them, and we need to get them training the rest, because there are a lot of guys that are slipping, and they're not the ones that are taking the punishment.
Amen. And get them paid probably a little more, because right now it's a labor of love and a pretty thankless job. You did a fantastic job of recapping that, and I appreciate the passion in which you do so. Just for the sake of it, since I sort of danced around earlier, do you want to say what ultimately led to do you want to clear the air, what led to your departure from the UFC? Because you still stuck around after the Herb Dean, tete-a-tete. So what was the ultimate nail in the coffin?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I've tried not to think about it obsessively, but it's difficult to try to not want to unpick it a little bit. I mean, I think the first issue was when I arrived at Fight Island. You know, immediately the next Fight Island, my first question from the media, and you can judge where the question came from, but the question was back at the scene of the crime. You know, and then it went over the Herb Dean thing, almost like my response was being tested. I stood my ground and I said my piece again. And I don't think that went down well, because after that point, they started to keep the media away from me a bit. That started to be, you know, like I would see the media list where Felder and Gooden and Sanko and Anik and everybody's got 15 minutes in front of the media, and my name wouldn't be on the list. It was like they were keeping me away in case I'd say something that they didn't want me to say. So that's my first thought when I start thinking that's a bit odd. And then the issue was with the person that was responsible for making sure that media work was coming in my direction. Because like my job, as well as being a commentator, I was an ambassador for Europe. So it was my job to be speaking to the media on a regular basis. And that just nosedived. It just dropped off. They just stopped putting work my way. So then I'd had this conversation a few times with a few different people in the organization, and nothing had been done about it. And then when it came to that particular Fight Island, so the Holloway Cater fight had just ended. I'd done the ESPN desk, so I got back to the hotel at sort of 5 a.m. and I was back downstairs for BT Sport at noon, recording for Dustin Poirier McGregor the week after. And there was just a small group of us there, and we're doing the show, etc. And the individual came to see how we were going and stuff. And I asked a question about an opportunity with BBC Radio that was, they'd requested me and the message had never got through to me, but I'd been taken off a broadcast in order to do that job. So I had a bit of, there was a little back and forth of, why didn't you let me know? If something comes through to you with my name on it, you should let me know these things. And I think ultimately what happened is that this individual was embarrassed because there were a few people there, and I shouldn't have had that conversation there. It should have happened a different time, and I recognize that, and I have apologized to her. Never heard back from anybody, but I've sent my apologies. But that was it. I mean, there was nothing more to it. It was a back and forth about the fact that I should have been working BBC Radio for the McGregor-Poirier fight, Octagon side, a massive opportunity for the UK for broadcasting, as you know. And that was kind of it. It was just a bit of a back and forth. And then she kind of walked off, and I went to fighter interviews, and I did 6-7 hours of fighter interviews for the Wednesday event. And by the time I got back to my told me they were putting me on a flight. And after that, I had a 6-minute conversation with HR, and then 2 weeks later they fired me. And I have no answers. No one's answering emails, no nothing. And it's infuriating as well as upsetting, because it feels vindictive and it feels unnecessary, but it also feels kind of calculated in a lot of ways, But Inside the Octagon's gone. I mean, we used to love doing that show. They tried to keep that going. That's gone. Open Mat is now a different show entirely, and I have my own breakdown show. I'm thankful for BT for standing by me, and for the fans that have been demanding, and also the ones that completely decimated those Inside the Octagon comments sections, because, I mean, they were the ones that held strong for me. I appreciate all that. But yeah, it just, ultimately I feel like I'm on the right side of the line now, because now I feel like I can make more of a difference than I could when I was on the inside. But of course, everyone loves to be sitting Octagon side for the big fights.
Well, I do enjoy seeing you for the Cage Warriors events. So you're still there doing those, right? Am I correct in that? That will continue?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just help Cage Warriors out. I mean, I've always had such a long relationship with them because of my being a champion, and I've got guys fighting on the cards now as well. So I'm always there, and it's just nice to pick up a mic from time to time and get excited about some fights. But I will be commentating again. Absolutely, I will. I've got a couple options, and I'm weighing them up and seeing which direction I'm going to go. But my priority is to have a couple of fights first, and then we'll be sitting back down with a microphone again.
I love it. Well, enjoy Bellator this Friday. Perhaps that will lead to great things. So great to catch up with you, Dan, and I really do wish you the best. And it is nice to see that, look, it didn't work out there and things ended unceremoniously, and I know it's very hard to talk about. And by the way, I appreciate you bringing this stuff up. I didn't want to upset you on what probably would be a great day for you after visiting the doctor and get the clean bill of health. But one thing that I often like to tell people is, don't lick your wounds. Don't feel sorry for yourself. No one feels sorry for you. Go out there and figure out a new path, and you have done that and then some. So I love the stuff that you're doing. I love the channel. I love the guys that you're aligned with. It's Raptors MMA, right? That's the YouTube channel. Am I correct?
Full Reptile is the YouTube. Yeah, the Raptors are the team that run the show.
Right.
But yeah, Full Reptile is the YouTube. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it.
My apologies. Great stuff. I look forward to maybe you versus Tyron Woodley, you versus God knows who. That will be quite the scene, my friend. So we've covered a lot of ground. I appreciate it very much, and hope to have you back on soon. Thank you so much.